Ukraine is burning through 250,000 155mm artillery rounds a month. That's 4 times the production capacity of the US and EU before this war began. Across NATO, countries are trying to meet that demand. By 2028, the US plans to be making 1 million shells a year. But should nations like America and the UK be ploughing billions into homegrown production of these more basic weapons? Professor Jonathan D. Cavalier lectures at the US Naval War College. He says that procurement model may protect sovereign capability, but it's also inefficient and uneconomic. The solution? Treat artillery shells, drones, even shoulder-mounted missile systems like any other commodity. Basic products that can be produced in bulk by companies across the globe, and let the market find the most cost-effective way to produce them.
The goal of the suppliers, the supporters of Ukraine, is to get as many munitions in the hands of the Ukraine army as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible while still having them function. And that's a much different project, and that's a much different economic activity than, say, supplying even Challengers or M1A1 Abrams tanks, or even sort of a high-end UAV like Predator.
Professor Cavalier argues that the US and EU would be better off focusing on higher-end weaponry and products than these more basic items. The US has donated 2 million 155mm shells, compared to just 7,000 precision-guided rounds like Excalibur. Ukraine wants more, but without them it's been forced to use whatever it can get, including captured North Korean rockets. To get Kyiv the quantity of ordnance it needs, says the professor, Europe and the US need to make better use of their enormous buying power.
If you think about who is actually going to purchase most of these shells, it's going to be the United States, the European Union, and NATO. And obviously there's overlap between all three. But basically, either those three actors, or hopefully those three actors in concert, will say, we plan to buy 4 million shells over the next 3 years. And we would like to meet the following standards. They have to work a certain way to fit in a certain number of barrels. And whoever can give them to us fastest for the best price is who we're going to go with.
One of the other issues the market could help solve, says Professor Cavalier, is the lack of standardisation of weaponry. In Europe alone, there are 15 manufacturers making 155mm shells. But not all the rounds are identical, and that's a massive problem for Ukrainian gunners trying to counter the Russian onslaught.
It's actually pretty embarrassing for NATO, because even our 155 standards aren't that great. And in fact, you hear these stories about units, Ukrainian units on the front line, having to buy industrial scales because they have to weigh whatever 155 shell comes along to figure out what it actually weighs, what's inside it, what's it shaped. And then they have to use an Excel spreadsheet to actually recalculate the ballistics so it could actually get the ordnance on target. And that's a 155 shell, which we supposedly have standardized over time.
The professor says senior officials at the Pentagon are listening to his arguments. This, he says, a once-in-a-generation chance to rationalise the way defence procurement works, removing duplication, standardising more weaponry, while also giving Ukraine the ammunition and supplies it wants, at the speed and in quantities it so badly needs. Simon Newton, Forces News. Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.